We're going to start with a moment of silence in this episode to give you a moment to reflect on all the heroes that tried to save life and all the lives that were taken.
Welcome to the Licensed to Live show, where professionals, doctors, champions, VIPs, attorneys, and those in public office discover strategies that help you restart and gain what is lost when you find yourself accused. If another has doubted your integrity, questioned your credentials, or caused your actions to come under scrutiny, you are in the right place. On the other hand, if you have never felt the knot in the pit of your stomach when legal papers are served, the heartbreak of disappointing your family when the lock clicks shut on handcuffs, or had to appear before a board of review, then be aware, the longer you serve, the more likely you are to find yourself under the microscope of those who judge. Prepare yourself for this uncomfortable possibility. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jarrett Patton.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. We've covered this topic before. We've talked about it before. It continues to happen. Yes, I'm talking about violence in the workplace, number one, but even more specifically, gun violence that we've had in our country for, oh my goodness, it's been going on for so long. I can't even count all of these horrendous mass shootings that have taken place over the years, especially if you go all the way back to something like Columbine. It's sad when you think about it. I wanted to really talk about workplace safety today, but the issue of gun violence can't be ignored. And I am not a politician. I'm just an ordinary citizen with ordinary rights. And we need to do something about our gun violence, our gun culture, in all of our cities and suburbs and rural areas. Now there are no boundaries. This can happen anywhere. And I will get into giving you a few workplace safety tips to consider, but really, I don't have the solution to this problem. Many people want to get themselves lots of guns and carry their guns and want no restrictions on guns. And yeah, I too am a gun owner, but if they need to put restrictions and impinge on my rights to bear arms, I'd be okay with that because, well, honestly, I don't need them. And most people don't need them. And when they get into the wrong hands, which they do all too often, it causes a lot of pain and suffering for families and the trauma that endures. It's a lot, folks. So I don't have the answers, but if you do, please talk with your lawmakers locally, federally, and let's try to get something done around this issue. When we look at workplace safety, it's changed over the years. These violent incidents happen to come a lot more often in areas like emergency rooms. And usually the violence was against other patients. Perhaps there could have been a shooting in the city and maybe it was gang related. And well, people weren't really worried about the staff or employees. It was just a person that was shot and wasn't killed. And so sometimes people would come in and try to finish them off by any means necessary. And violence in the emergency room is not that uncommon. But now, as we mourn the loss of Dr. Preston Phillips, Dr. Stephanie Hewson as well, and a couple of other staff members in Tulsa who lost their lives simply by doing their jobs. And I mean, we can't control how people act in our healthcare system. Yes, I too was a victim of things that happen in healthcare systems. But I mean, my life was maintained. It was changed forever. And now I look back and I'm happy for that. But even as I walked out of that courtroom, I told the reporters there standing that, you know what, at the end of the day, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And unfortunately, Dr. Preston Phillips will not have that option because he was gunned down in his place of work, simply trying to do his job. And that must stop. So I'm asking all of you to take some matters in your own hand, because sometimes things don't happen quickly enough in systems and offices and places. And a lot of times people think it can't happen here. And the truth is it can happen anywhere. If the last couple of months hasn't shown you, it can happen in big cities, medium cities, small town, rural areas. It doesn't matter. Nobody is immune to this. So you have to take matters into your own hands. I mean, when we look at workplace safety, you know, the accessibility to guns, the way people have endured or suffered throughout the pandemic, there's a lot more violence going on now than there has been. And it's not simply in hospitals now. It's happening in doctors' offices. It's happening in clinics. It's happening in surgery centers. It is happening everywhere. So the first thing I want you to do is just go back to some of the basics. Be aware of your surroundings at all times. If you're in a place and things don't seem right, if you're in a place and a patient is escalating things, try to do what you can in the moment to be aware of what these possibilities are. And don't simply say it can't happen here, it won't happen here. Well, I used to think that, but yeah, the truth is it happens anywhere. So be aware of your surroundings. And that means make sure everything is secure as it can be in your work location, when you're looking at doors, when you're looking at locks, when you're looking at entry and exit. Look at everything around your surroundings. And if something's not right, then listen to that instinct and see what it is and see what can be corrected, which brings me to point number 2. If it doesn't feel right, just ask for help. So some of you guys are working odd shifts. You may have to go to dark, quiet areas at certain times of the night, whether in a building or let's say you're leaving your shift through a parking lot, and ask for some help. Hey, get a security person to escort you. Go with a group of friends. Let's try to minimize your exposure everywhere. So make sure you're asking for help. And number 3, I think this is probably the most important thing, is really being prepared and being prepared for this emergency. It is important for you to remember to have a plan. And if you haven't reviewed that plan lately, this is the time to bring it up. So bring it up in your medical staff meeting. Bring it up with your general staff meeting. Bring it up at your team meeting, because people need to know how to act in these situations. And just like when you were in school, when you may have had fire drills or tornado drills, or if you went to school a little bit later, or in school like my kids where you actually do active shooter drills, you need to be prepared for this situation, because if you don't have any idea what the plan is, you won't know how to react and the outcome could be worse. So make sure you are looking for people and places that can help you in this situation. And if you need to run some drills or talk about scenarios, start with that. You can't just think it's not going to happen. You have to start somewhere. So look at a safety plan and perhaps think about running a drill if need be. What will you do with your patients? What will you do with your staff members? What doors are locked? Where are the escape routes? Where are all these things? Do you know the answers to these questions? If you don't, you need to find out. I'm tired of reading about this and we've had a recent rash of it, but it continues to happen to doctors, to nurses, to technicians, to people going about their daily lives in their jobs. And I, for one, I'm sick of it. So in this moment, folks, be aware of your surroundings. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right, and ask for some help. And finally, perform your own security review. Get that plan. Make sure you stay safe. And that may be the best we can do until we as a nation can solve this issue with our infatuations with guns and violence. See you next time.
No matter how disheartening the moment of accusation sounds, how deep the pain of immobilization stabs, or how bleak your future looks, no one can take away your license to live. Keep Dr. Jarrett's expertise handy and unlock your future. Go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or another podcast player and subscribe right now to Licensed to Live. See you next time.